Sisal is the world's most important hard fiber. From it are made thick ropes, capable of holding 10,000 tons of ocean-going cargo ship secure to a quayside. During the war, in both the Navy and the mercantile marine, sisal ropes and cordage almost wholly replaced manila. Today, its uses are becoming increasingly varied. Fishing fleets throughout the world use large quantities of sisal in the form of trawls and nets. Sisal provides clotheslines and string for tying parcels. Every day, millions of newspapers are tied into bundles for delivery on countless street corners, tied with sisal twine. Another big consumer is the post office. Most of the letters that reach you leave the sorting office tied with sisal. But the agricultural industry is the largest single user of sisal. All over the world at harvest time, thousands of miles of sisal baler and binder twine are put to use. Among the products handled with the aid of sisal twine are hay, straw, flax, and lucerne. Sisal fiber is ideal for matting of all kinds because of its toughness and durability. Today, the trend is towards sisal matting that is more than merely utilitarian. Colored carpets are being produced that are most attractive both for the office and the home. Pads of tow, that is sisal fibers of shorter length, find many applications. In upholstery, such pads are used as an insulator between the harshness of the springs and the soft outside cover. Many modern cars have seating made in this way. And in the upholstery of large passenger liners, sisal plays its part. Between rails and sleepers, wedges of sisal are being tested experimentally as shock absorbers, an unusual use. The building industry finds several uses for the long, strong fibers of sisal in the manufacture of sisal-reinforced building papers. There's another variety faced with aluminium to serve as a reflective heat insulator that is also waterproof. What has an English public house to do with sisal? The dartboard is made of sisal. But it's pretty certain that none of these people know this, or for that matter, what the raw product looks like or where it's grown. This is the sisal plant, and it's from the long, spiky leaves that the sisal fibers are obtained. Today, well over half the world's total supply comes from East Africa, mainly from Tanganyika. Curiously enough, sisal is not a native of Tanganyika. It was introduced just over 60 years ago, when Tanganyika was a German colony, by a young German agricultural expert, Dr. Richard Hindorf.
Germany was looking for a useful plant that would grow in the semi-arid conditions of the Tanganyika coast, and it was my job to find it. After some preliminary examinations of the soil and climatic conditions, I returned to Germany. Back in Germany, I set about the task of investigating all those plants that might be suitable for my purpose. I searched through innumerable sources of information and contacted botanical authorities in many parts of the world, including, of course, the Royal Botanic Gardens at Kew. One day, as I was reading the latest Kew Bulletin, I saw an article that arrested my attention. It referred to the growing of sisal hemp in Mexico, and said that the soil and climate there seemed similar to those in Tanganyika. In 1836, some of the plants had been exported to the United States of America. I wrote and asked that 1,000 of them should be sent to me by Messrs. Reasoner Brothers of Florida. These bulbils, as they are known, were planted at Kikogwe, not far from Tanga Port. Only 62 of the original 1,000 plants that survived the journey from Florida to Tanganyika.
From Dr. Hindorf's 62 plants, the vast industry of today has grown up. The area of the sisal estates now exceeds 1 million acres of what was formerly bush. The sisal plant bears over 200 leaves. Cutting is not begun until the plant is 3 to 5 years old. Then the lower leaves are cut, the period between cuts being determined by the rate of growth. But on average, it's about once a year. The botanical name for sisal is Agave sisalana, and strangely enough, it belongs to the same family as the daffodil. Each leaf has a needle-sharp tip, which the cutter removes to make handling less dangerous later on. The leaves are loaded onto light railway wagons for transport through the estate to the processing plant. On arrival at the processing factory near the center of the estate, the leaves are fed into a machine known as a decorticator. This machine strips the leaves, separating the flesh from the fibers. About 8,000 gallons of water an hour under pressure assist the process. The leaves contain only 3 or 4% of fiber and about 13% of fleshy matter. The rest is water. The unwanted matter having been washed away, the fiber emerges. Now the wet fiber goes to be dried and bleached. Hundreds of tons of fiber are spread on the drying lines and bleached by the African sun. After being sorted and graded into 6 main grades, the bleached sisal is brushed by machine. It is now ready for baling. The sisal is not yet ready for dispatch. It's too loose and bulky for handling and must be compressed into a tighter mass, taking up less space. Each bale is placed in a press and reduced to 60 or 70 cubic feet to the ton. At this point, steel bands are placed round the bale to secure it when the pressure is removed. Sisal rope is often used instead. The bands are joined by automatic welders. Each bale contains 1/4 of a ton of sisal. A small quantity of handmade ropes are used on the estate for use in baling and for conveyor belts on the decorticators.
Those of us who work on the sisal estates know that although the processes involved look quite simple, it's a pretty tricky business. To start with, it must be done on a large scale to be economic. That means finding a large amount of capital to pay for the initial clearing and cultivating of the land, and to pay for the laying and maintenance of perhaps 50 miles of narrow gauge railway, the provision of diesel locos and rolling stock. There's the provision of buildings, the installation of the necessary machinery for decorticating, brushing and packing. A supply of electricity, sometimes brought many miles, must be provided to drive the plant. You have to budget on a long-term basis because for the first 3 to 5 years after planting, the sisal is immature and non-productive. Its productive life is limited to 5 or 6 years, its complete life being about 12 years. At the end of this time, it sends up a long pole, on the top of which about 2,000 young bulbils grow. The best of these are selected for planting out in sisal nurseries. The art of growing sisal as an economic proposition lies in securing a proper balance between mature and immature plants. We have to employ a number of European managers and perhaps as many as 1,000 Africans on an average estate. In fact, it's estimated that almost 1/3 of the employed population of Tanganyika work for us in the sisal industry. Although the vast majority are men, and the women folk of most tribes do not work in the fields, the Mawia tribe are an exception.
There are about 140,000 of us working on the sisal estate. We used to live in the village like this one, picturesque, but not always healthy. But today, increasing numbers of sisal estates have new villages built by the sisal growers, for what they need is a permanent working community. They have also built hospitals and clinics where we and our families get free medical treatment. They have built schools for our children. There are also churches for those of us who are Christians, and mosques for there are many Muslims here. On market day in the village, we can buy food, clothing, and most other things that we need. Some villages have their own cinema, although often it is a building thatched with leaves, and the town people might not recognize it for a cinema at all. And we have plenty of football pitches, for we like football very much. The sisal growers provided us with these things because they knew that we would work better for them if we were happy and healthy. It is a business arrangement which is good for them and for us. We are certainly much better off since they started to grow sisal here.
We sisal growers know that we must maintain and, if possible, improve the quality of the product if we are to keep and expand our market. So a sisal research station has been set up by the industry. Here, various types of fertilizer are experimented with, for the soil must not be allowed to lose its productivity. Selected plants are reared, and their reaction to specific fertilizers and chemical additions to the soil carefully studied and recorded. In the laboratory, experiments are made to determine the chemical composition of the soil and of various fertilizers and phosphates. Funds to support this research work are obtained by a levy on tonnage contributed by all sisal growers. Experiments are made to find new uses and applications for sisal and its byproducts. One such development was the setting up of this Hicogenin pilot plant at Ruiri in Kenya. The aim is the commercial production of the drug cortisone from sisal leaves. The leaves are decorticated in the usual manner, but this time it is the juice and not the fiber that is required for further processing. From this juice, by a whole series of remarkable chemical processes, cortisone will eventually emerge, a recently discovered drug of great importance, first used in the treatment of rheumatoid arthritis. In this plant, the sisal juice is transformed into a substance known as hicogenin, from which, by a remarkable series of no less than 20 complicated chemical steps, it is subsequently converted in Britain into a very different substance, cortisone, and the range of related products so widely used in medicine today.
The combined Tanganyika and Kenya production of sisal represents more than half the world's tonnage. This vast quantity calls for a considerable organization to handle, store, and dispatch it to the world's markets.
And that's where we come in, East African Railways and Harbours Administration. There's a siding at each of the godowns where wagons are loaded. They are then hitched to a train which takes them to the port. The chief sisal port of Tanganyika is Tanga, recently expanded to handle the increasing tonnage. Sisal is also shipped through Dar es Salaam and much of the Kenya production through Mombasa. The bales are stored in port sheds until the ships are ready to take them away. A lot of sisal passes through here. It's quite a task getting this lot moved. It's a good job we're well organized at the port. The port committee meets regularly to exchange information. Today the harbour master is in the chair and the railways and shipping representatives discuss the handling of the traffic, how many bales of sisal are expected in the immediate future, port storage capacity available, and so on. Then we radio information to approaching ships. And so when the sisal arrives at the various ports, we are ready for it. It's only quite recently that we installed these new cranes at Tanga Port, and they have already proved their worth as a vital addition to the port facilities. With the lighters loaded and on their way, the work of the railways and harbours is almost complete.
Fleets of lighters glide between the shore and the waiting ships. The ships of many nations call at the ports of East Africa to collect this valuable cargo. An average annual total of more than 14 million pounds worth, a total of around 150 million pounds worth since the war, exported to Europe, America, and most of the countries of the world. The statue of Dr. Hindolph stands in Tanga. Back in 1892, when he planted his first 62 bulbils, he can scarcely have realized that he was founding one of the major industries of East Africa.